All right. Hello, everyone. If you are just joining, we are going to give it a minute for that registration number to climb. Give everybody a second to hop on, and then we will get started. A lot of speakers today. All right, 30 seconds or so, I think, before we start. Everybody, I'll give it a little bit more time to let people find that link and hop on. All right, we'll go ahead and get started because we have a lot to talk about and only an hour to do it. So welcome, everyone. If you have joined us for our past 3 webinars, we are so glad to have you again. And if you are new, then we are glad that you were able to make it with us today. So for these past 3 webinars of our social and emotional learning speaker series, we've talked a lot about implementing SEL in a way that's relevant to students' lives, that's in context of their lives. We've also heard from our friends at the Great Kindness Challenge on an amazing program that you can bring to your schools to spread kindness and implement SEL. So today we are really going to wrap up our series by kind of closing that loop and thinking about how do we bring SEL into the home. As educators, how do we partner with parents to make sure that the SEL experience is in every facet of a student's life. And if you have a remote or a hybrid setting, or if you're any kind of virtual school, how do you implement SEL in a remote setting? So that's what we're going to cover today. We're going to hear from a lot of different speakers. First, you're going to hear from Jill and Puja, and they're going to talk about the Great Kindness Challenge and the home edition. Then you're going to hear from Kerri, who is a clinical social worker. She works with parents. She has some incredible insights to share with us. And then you'll hear from Adam, who's a school psychologist and has some really creative ways of engaging parents and engaging students. And then you'll hear from Stacey, who is an educator and an author. And she's done some really amazing stuff with remote learning and building relationship with students in those environments. So I think everybody's going to walk away today with something that they can take back to the classroom, maybe even take back to their own families to really strengthen social and emotional learning. So with that, I will hand it off to Jill.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Sarah. It is a treat to be partnering again with McGraw-Hill for the good of our schools, our students, and for our families. So we're delighted to be your partner and your friend. So thank you so much. We're going to talk a little bit about the Great Kindness Challenge. I'm going to give you some history of what the Great Kindness Challenge is in schools, and then how we have now brought it to families with our Great Kindness Challenge Family Edition. So we can go to that next slide. The Great Kindness Challenge started as a grassroots movement. It started actually with my school, my children, and in Carlsbad, California, and it just started as a way to increase, enhance the school environment. And from the humble beginnings, word spread, and it grew from just 3 schools in 2012, and then this last year we had over 33,000 schools participating in the Great Kindness Challenge. And it really is a grassroots movement. It's expanded because it really works, and we give really simple tools, which I'll explain these simple tools to you. So on the next slide, the Great Kindness Challenge, basically, it's a global, proactive, positive, whoopsie. Oh boy, I just clicked my wrong button. I'm gonna click again. It is a global, proactive, positive. It's a pre-K through high school, so it's all ages. It's free So there's no cost for it. It's really easy to implement. The ease is something that's so important to us because we know how much is going on in school. And so we want to make sure that it's just something that's so turnkey for you. And it focuses on compassion, on gratitude, on connection, overall goodness. I'm going to try to get my slides better again. There we go. There, I can see again. Excuse me. The Great Kindness Challenge is all based on a kindness checklist. So it's a very simple concept. Students receive a checklist and then they're challenged to complete as many acts of kindness as possible in 1 week. And you'll see then we've expanded it so it can go year round as well. And so we have a school edition, a junior edition, we have a hybrid edition for those who are learning in school and at home. And we have the virtual classroom edition for those of you who are learning all virtually. And there are lots of ways that we engage the family. We can go to that next slide. The next slide was we always want the parents to know, the families to know, the guardians to know what's happening. So we have a turnkey parent letter that you can share so that we really want the families to know what is happening with that week and what their students are participating in, and encouraging them to encourage their students to continue the kindness at school and at home. So on the next thing, I'm going to show you how the parents can actually get involved with the Great Kindness Challenge. There's two parts of with this presentation today. There's a part about how parents can be involved in the Great Kindness Challenge at school, so ways we can involve our families, and then how we can how parents can bring it back to actually do the Great Kindness Challenge with their families at home. So in the prep of the Great Kindness Challenge, parents can be really involved in making happy signs and Kindness Matters posters. There's a lot of joy that can go into the creation of that. In the prep on the next slide, there's also, they can make copies of the kindness checklists. We don't want to ever underestimate the and emphasize the value of the kindness checklist. So it's all about that. So we can have parents help with the copying, making photocopies of the checklist. They can help and assemble teacher kindness kits so we can make it as easy as possible for teachers to do. And when schools sign up for the Great Kindness Challenge, they get a toolkit that has all of these resources spelled out very clearly. I'm just kind of whizzing through them so you can get a taste, but once you sign up, you get all of this in our toolkit. They can also, with the prep on the next slide, they can help do the marquee. We always want to share with the community that the Great Kindness Challenge is happening, so parents can help to make sure. I mean, all these little things, it's like, oh yes, go do the marquee, but we know that everything takes time. And so when we spell out all these different roles that parents and guardians and volunteers can play to be part of the Great Kindness Challenge. And with the prep on the next slide, they can also design school-wide incentives. We like the kindness to be an incentive enough, but we know that just adding that little extra inspiration, that little extra incentive can make a big difference. And again, our toolkit gives lots of ideas of the kind of incentives they could provide to the students for completing all 50 acts of kindness. Then on the next slide, they can help with kindness themed door decorating. Schools, it's so beautiful to walk on several of the schools during the Great Kindness Challenge week, because some go all out and like from every hall and sidewalk talks, the floors are decorated messages, the doors are decorated. So that's something else that parents can really help with, is getting the whole environment filled with all of these positive, beautiful, bright messages. So that, I believe, is all the prep. And on the next slide, we're going to go into how parents can help during the actual Great Kindness Challenge week. I don't think I mentioned that the Great Kindness Challenge week generally is the last week of January. We do that so we can come back from winter break and start the new year with a big dose of kindness. And it's something that we trust schools to do whenever is best for them, but it's fun when we're all collectively raising the vibration by all participating in kindness in the last week of January. So parents during that week can be part of the community kindness tunnel. They can greet the students on Monday morning with the fun signs and just really celebrating kindness as we all come together. They can also, on the next slide, they can be help with kindness stations. We do kindness recess stations that we encourage so that students can have a place to go to get any supplies that they might need during to complete their checklist. We really tried to design this so it doesn't take away from the teacher time, the teaching time. And so if they want, everything can be done, at recess and outside of the actual classroom hours. Parents can also help judging the door decorating contest. It's really fun to get them involved in, we say loosely judging them. And it's also a wonderful way to bring the community involved. That here we see the sheriff, and I think this is one of the elected officials that came in and was helping to judge the doors. You can also judge writing contests and there's lots of ideas in that toolkit. And on the next slide, they can help organize a joint community service project. There's so many fabulous community service projects that can be done during the Great Kindness Challenge week. It can be done all year round, and the parents can be involved in that. This is a really sweet picture because the students are actually greeting the parents with treats to thank them as part of one of their acts of kindness on there, which is really lovely. And then after the Great Kindness Challenge, parents can be involved in lots of ways. They can help recognize the students with a certificate. So we have certificates that can get customized for each student, and so they can help with that process. All students participate can become a kindness certified student, which is so cool. All schools who participate also become kindness certified schools, which is really a fun way to just honor the commitment to kindness. The parents can help with post event celebrations. So there's all kinds of ideas, again, from ice cream parties to dance parties to this was a step and repeat where the local our community city hall, the city hall at the city council meeting, they brought the students in and they presented each school with a special certificate. So the parents can be part of that, and they can then practice kindness at home. And I'm going to talk about how we can actually bring it to our families. So after we've been doing the Great Kindness Challenge for several years, we had many schools saying, how can we keep the kindness going at home? And then we can go to the next slide. We were also asked to, well, I'll get to what we're asked to. So we thought, how fun would that be if we created a new checklist for families? So we created the Great Kindness Challenge Family Edition. And again, it's something based on the checklist. It's really easy. It's SEL focused. It's very unifying for the family. It's holistic in terms of our whole, the whole being, with gratitude to acts of to self-care to community service. All of that is in it, and it's fun. We want to emphasize the fun for life. Life is better when we can have more fun, and it makes the world a better place. So the Great Kindness Challenge, we did have families on the next slide. We had families asking us, we had schools asking us for something for the families, and then we had been on Good Morning America the year before, and they said, we want another checklist that all of our viewers can use. So the following year, they brought us back on Good Morning America to launch the Family Edition, which was super cool. And we decided to, behind all the kids and the news and the weather person there, forget her name, sorry about that, but behind that is a bus. And we created this big, beautiful Kindness Matters bus, and we got it shipped we live in California, we got it shipped to Times Square. Good Morning America saw our bus and we want that on Good Morning America. So we shipped it to Times Square and launched the Family Edition on Good Morning America. Then on the next slide, we decided to go on a whole Kindness Matters bus tour to really add the fun and just to spread the kindness from coast to coast. So we had a bus full of kids and family members. This super cool dad drove the bus from New York in January, and we went all the way and did all 50 acts of kindness from the Family Edition checklist. So there's just something, we always want to add some extra fun on there. And there's just some of the kids that were part of us doing the acts of kindness. We went to the senior center, played games and all. So with that speed racer overview of the Family Edition, which you all can easily get it. Again, it's free. You can just go to our website and sign up and get access to that. With that, we want you to see what it looks like in person. So we have one of our fabulous family members, Puja Shah, is going to show what it looked like for her family, what it meant to her family. So I'm going to pass it over to Puja, and thank you for caring for your families. Families are so important, and just grateful that we're focusing on them. Puja.
Thank you, Jill. Thanks so much. It's so nice to be here with everyone. And I feel so honored to be amongst educators. This past 2 years has been definitely, you guys are my heroes. I will start. I have been with Kids for Peace for quite some time, supporting the organization, but also I was a former board member, and now you can go to the next slide. You'll see my daughter and I, she is now a Kids for Peace advocate as well. You can say, here we are, for a long time, Kids for Peace came, she was a baby, and I would bring this home and I would say, I can't wait for her to get to school and do the Great Kindness Challenge. Back then we didn't have the family edition, and now we do, which I'm going to talk about. But it just, I would see it in action as when I was pregnant and as she grew. And so then I was so excited when our school got on board. And so the Great Kindness Challenge has been part of her life at school now for many years. And now this is how I bring it home. I have a son as well. And I'll go to the next slide and show you how we've been putting this into action. So here we are, these are her friends. They were these wonderful signs. This is how us as parents got involved. We went over we have the Pacific Coast Highway, and we stood on the side of the highway and everybody was riding by. We had people walking with surfboards. We had, people driving by, and these are the signs. They say joy and peace. They say great job. You are the best. I think there was one video where one of the kids was holding a sign that said, you did it. And there was a surfer that walked by and said, I needed to hear that, and it just warmed my heart, being able to witness this in action and be part of it. The teachers are always doing everything of the Great Kindness Challenge at school. So having parents get involved in the Great Kindness Challenge is so wonderful. It just, and then it gives you something to talk about. We talked about it for days, Layla and I. And so this is just showing that and showcasing just the energy around the Great Kindness Challenge and what that means to parents. Then you can go to the next slide. And so when we put the Family Kindness Challenge into action, I was kind of like, well, how is my little son going to get involved? When we first did it at the time, you can see, he was about, I think, only 2 years old at the time. And when we were doing, or maybe a little younger, and when we were doing it, I thought, well, and the beauty of the Great Kindness Challenge family checklist is that it's the whole family gets involved. And so here we are making Kindness Matters sign. Everybody gets a chance to color it together. It brought us together, which I just, even making a sign together, anytime we brought our family together, it just always felt good. So I was really excited about bringing it home. And then we could look at the next slide. And then leaving a flower on someone's doorstep is on there. And this is so exciting because, well, one, if you have a garden, it's so exciting from seed to growth to then take it and bring it to someone's doorstep. We did that recently and it felt so good. We had a huge sunflower, and delivering that just with your family is just such a beautiful deed. And this is just, especially nowadays when we have so much disconnection with COVID and the pandemic. So I love this one. And then we can move on to the next one. And so painting kindness rocks and randomly placing it. This is one of our favorite things to do as a family. And it's something that it's really nice because they do it at school as well, as something they do during the Great Kindness Challenge. And then it was almost like our daughter led it for us. So that was really wonderful. She came home and said, we did this at school. This is how we do it. And it gave her this power to teach us, which was so exciting for her and so exciting for us. And so I just love that crossover and bridge of being able to do something from the Great Kindness Challenge at school and then being able to transition it over into our home and share it with us when we don't really know everything that happens at school. And so I'm sure many of your parents will love hearing that from their kids. And this is something also I'll share personally. It was really virtual life, and I'm sure many of you heard from your parents as well. It was really hard with learning at school, and you may still have students who are virtual. She on her own thought about it, and that's when I thought, well, this is more than a list. It's an actual feeling, she thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if we made those love rocks and peace rocks and put them around at the neighbors, because we weren't seeing the neighbors as much when we were on complete lockdown. And I mean, we weren't really doing the checklist in that moment. And I thought, well, she just remembered it from then. So that's just showing how it can carry over beyond the list. And so we did actually go around and place love rocks all around to all our neighbors, the people she had normally been seeing when we take walks and rode bikes, but because everyone was closed up and virtual, she wasn't. And I just thought that was such a beautiful opportunity. And so if you do have virtual students still, if you have the hybrid or fully virtual, it's a great activity sheet. And because there's no timeline, like how we hadn't really done it for a long time, and then she remembers, so we took it out again and we're able to do it, you can keep going with it, which is something I think as parents, there's not as much pressure. We appreciate, and then it's, you know, carrying over your great kindness challenge from January for the whole year. So I love that. Go to the next slide. So this is us reading a book to younger child. This is when Layla had just learned how to read. It was actually, if you have students who are just learning how to read and they have siblings, it was such a confidence builder. It brought us together, and it's on that list. So it feels good for her to check it off, you know, and we just adored hearing her read. So I love this one too. And this is creating a family gratitude jar. So what's beautiful about the gratitude jar is it's all year, all the time. We could just leave it. And it's such a wonderful opportunity to just bridge yourselves together and show gratitude and express it in such a loving way. So we love this one too. And this is raising funds and donating to your favorite cause. We love this, and it's so fun because you can get other family members involved. Different families within the school can come together. We've done that with different families outside of school, and said, hey, on the checklist, you know, and so we'll do it together so you can build community within your classroom as well. And we'll go to the next. Take a treat to your local firefighters. Our son loves firefighters, so this is a very exciting one. And especially here in California, we have the wildfires, and so especially during that time, it just always feels so appropriate, and just opens it up. And you could definitely have that conversation in the classroom as well on how that's maybe on your family checklist and what's happening, and you know, kind of relate that, because it is a question our kids had. And the next one. Watch the sunset or sunrise together. So this is such a simple one, but it's one of my all-time favorites. I think it's a pause. It allows the family to pause, allows us to pause. We have a younger boy and an older girl, and they don't have that much in common, but this just brings us together to just this almost like a sacred moment of, let's be together, watch the sunset. And here we are, it just fills our bucket. I think that, you know, in general, something like this doesn't seem like this is a kind act, but yet it is. You're showing gratitude to nature, and you can have that discussion. And maybe kids can carry that discussion into the classroom if the families are doing it. And overall, I think, you know, go to the next slide. It's just, I think this idea of kindness, I love the Great Kindness Challenge, the momentum in January, and then just carrying that over a full year is something that is so near and dear. And I think, you know, it closes the loop when you're fostering that at school, and then you're bringing that over and having parents just do it as they go throughout their year, the school year into the summer. It really, you know, bridges that. So that is my experience. I am all for it, as you can tell. But yeah, I do truly encourage it to foster the true kindness that you're putting and emulating in your classroom outside into the homes amongst siblings and families as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Puja and Jill. Before we pivot away from the Great Kindness Challenge, we don't have any questions for you guys, but I did want to share, Stephanie left in the comments that she found out that her school is involved with the Great Kindness Challenge. And today their entire school actually wore blue for anti-bullying and kindness. So that is just so awesome. Stephanie, you rock. Good job. All right, and now we are going to move over to Kerri, who's going to talk a little bit about family engagement and working with families.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you, Puja and Jill. I am so excited to hear more about that. And I'm a clinical social worker and work with both families and trying to bridge home and school. And I'm just filled with such optimism and hope that this Great Kindness Challenge will not only bring such positivity, but I think really does help teach so many of these really critical social emotional skills, which are really important for success. And sometimes I think we forget about the skills and the actual learning process and look at just the outcomes. What are the grades? What are the test scores? And so I love this refocusing on connection and positivity, and I'm definitely going to work on bringing this to some of the schools around here. If it's not, or I don't think at least my kids have done it. So I'm gonna follow up. So thank you for inspiring me today. And now I got to refocus and think about what I was going to talk about, which is home and school connection. And I love that the Great Kindness Challenge brought those things together as well. So today I'm going to talk about why it's important and the impact of strong parent-teacher partnerships, and how to engage families and parents. So, as you know, educating children without parent involvement is like trying to solve a puzzle with some missing pieces, right? So without having that communication between parents and teachers, there's no way to know that a child is struggling at home with some family issues, and that's why they're having a hard time focusing in school. Or that a child is really distracted by some other kids in their class, and that's why they're having a hard time finishing their assignments and getting home and not knowing what to do with their homework. So unless the parents and the teachers are communicating about that, there's really no way to really be able to problem solve and provide the best support and structure and scaffolding for the students to give them the best success. And I have an example of a student I knew that actually did really well in school. She was able to focus, she was motivated, she did really well academically, she didn't cause any problems in the classroom. She was a model student, according to the teachers. When the student got home, she was a mess. She was stressed, she was anxious, she was really struggling to get her homework done. And until the parent brought that information to the school had no idea. And then they were able to work together to come up with a plan so that this student was supported both at home and at school and felt good in both of those environments. But without that communication, there would have been no way to know that that was what was going on once the child got home from school. And that happens a fair amount. Those children who do really well in school, they do sometimes struggle at home because they've held it together for so long and they've done so well in school that once they get home, they sort of let it all out, or they put this pressure on themselves. So having that communication is really important to get a better understanding of and a fuller picture of what's truly going on. So that's some of the why, but some of the research has also shown that teacher-family communication will improve the student-teacher relationship as well. It increases student participation and motivation, and also increases academic performance, improves social skills, and behavior as well. So what kind of parent involvement are we looking for, though? Because in this day where there is a lot of anxiety and stress over grades and test scores, and less kind of emphasis often on the social emotional skills, a parent can become over-involved, right? So I don't think schools or teachers are really looking for the parent who wants to take over the science project, or who is going to rush the kids' homework to school, every day for a month because they forgot it, rather than teaching them a lesson they need to remember themselves. Or a parent who is going to finish the math homework because they want to make sure their kid gets a 10 out of 10. That's taking over. That inadvertently gives the child the message that they in fact can't do it, which prevents them from developing these social emotional skills that we've been talking about, right? You can't develop confidence if somebody is telling you that you're really not capable. You can't develop motivation if somebody is constantly doing the work for you and saving you. And you don't learn to recover from mistakes or setbacks when somebody's constantly coming in and saving. So instead, we're looking for a healthy level of involvement. And one of the ways that schools and teachers can communicate that and help parents with that is to those reminders that that in fact the important thing is that the child develops those skills, that it's not important so much that the child gets a 10 out of 10, but that if they make mistakes, that they are learning from them. We learn not by getting everything right, we learn from the struggle and from the challenge. And as much as it seems like parents should remember that, it's hard to remember that in, kind of this high intense environment around school and education. And so I think giving them permission to step back, to be involved in a supportive way and not to take over can be really helpful in getting that right level of involvement. Because with a healthy amount of parent involvement, the child will develop that sense of confidence and independence and be able to problem solve and be able to develop their own intrinsic motivation. They're not doing something because their parent wants them to, or they don't want to disappoint their parent. They're doing it because they're curious. They're doing it because they want to learn. And that is going to carry on to their success later on in life as well. Additionally, there's another aspect of the parent and the teacher relationship that can help with development of social emotional skills. So as, I know some of the schools around here, they have a lot of social emotional lessons, which is awesome and really important. And children can be involved in those lessons, and it can be helpful to kind of logically understand what's going on. But in order to internalize those lessons, in order to really incorporate that into their daily life, they need to practice it. And they need to be able to observe people modeling those behaviors. And one way is through that relationship between the between the parent and the teacher. When they are working together, when they are demonstrating good communication, they are able to model that for the children. And they're also creating a really supportive environment between home and school that allows those children and the students to develop those skills in a safe environment because they feel supported. They feel that the teacher and their parent have their back and want the best for them. So you can go to the next slide, please, Sarah. Thank you. So what does that look like? How do you actually engage a parent? Well, there's 5 components to really creating that strong relationship. And if you're able to implement them, then you're more likely to develop that. Now, of course, both parties have to be willing to participate and work together. And I want to say that we have a saying in social work that you can only work, you can't work harder than your client, right? So you can't force this partnership on a parent. However, if you implement these strategies, then it's more likely to develop in a natural way. So it's looking at parents as partners, making positive assumptions about the other person, demonstrating mutual respect, collaborating, and communication. So in order to truly develop this partnership, you have to look at parents, and parents need to look at teachers as partners, as equals, in an authentic and genuine way. When we look at a parent as somebody to blame, or as a teacher as somebody to blame for what's going on with our kid, we're not starting from a very good place. But if we can look at a parent as a partner who is an equal person who can help us achieve the goal, which is to help support the education of those children. And that will help us to do the next step, which is to make positive assumptions. When we have empathy, when we think that somebody is doing something with good intentions, and make assumptions that somebody is trying their best, whether that's the student, the parent, the teacher. When we make that positive assumption about what the other person is doing, we come into that partnership with more of an open mind. And then we can develop that mutual respect, right? If we respect somebody else, they're more likely to respect us, and we're modeling that behavior again for the child, for the student. And when we can collaborate with those tenets in mind, from that mindset, we're able to look at the situation as, putting those puzzle pieces together. So we have a little bit of information and ideas from home and some from school, and how do we work together so that this child is supported in a way that bridges the two, and that the child doesn't slip through the cracks, that their learning and development and growth carries on between home and school. And communication is the critical tool to make all of this happen. Without that communication, there's no way to really maintain this an effective partnership. And it's hard because everybody is busy, but at the end of the day, putting in that extra effort ahead of time will help with maintaining that partnership, and will, generally speaking, make the lives easier for everybody, and will reinforce that partnership as well. And my hope for social emotional learning is that it won't continue to just be a little piece of the curriculum over here, but that as parents, as a community, as schools and educators and teachers, that we can really incorporate social emotional learning into every aspect of life, so that it's fully incorporated, and that it's something that will carry on for generations. And so thank you for having me. And Sarah, I will pass it on to you to introduce the next speaker.
Thank you. I moved too soon. So thank you, Kerri. Wonderful. So now we're going to pivot a little bit. We kind of had the parent engagement side of things. Now we're going to hear from two educators who are going to talk a little bit more about parent engagement from an educator's perspective, about building relationships with students, and about virtual learning. So next we have Adam Parker. Adam, I'll pass it off to you.
All right. Hello. I am Adam Parker. I'm a school psychologist live from my classroom office right now. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about social emotional learning, what it looks like here at school, and really the parallels that you can have at home. So my first slide here is the why. And, if you're here, you know that we're talking about social emotional learning and why it's so important. Looking at this from really like an educator lens, there's a lot more to our children than just academics. And so, like Kerri was saying, our kids come home, maybe they keep it together all day at school, but then they get to us at home and it's a different story. And so in the past, 2 years, we've had to overcome trauma, and whether that was from isolation or a parent losing a job or someone passing away, there was just a lot of trauma that occurred. And so what this presentation is going to be about is just what are some different coping skills, how do we name and talk about our feelings both at home and at school, and really just that focus on social emotional learning. Next slide, please. So from an educator perspective, and you can do this at home too, daily class meetings or just dinner time conversation. And what I like about this is, when you're at school, it's just talking about academics often, and just having a safe space to talk about anything else and to really stress talking about feelings. At the school I'm at, we've got check-ins, we've got some buddy systems. And so thinking about, as an adult, it feels really good to have someone just to vent to or talk about, man, this really stinks, or wow, this is really awesome. And our children need the same things. In our classrooms, we're doing a daily meeting. We're having a talking stick. You're passing it around. You're just sharing, here's how my night was. And really just being comfortable sharing our feelings. I think often we don't do that. We say, I'm doing fine, or good, I'm good. And so really this idea of exploring our emotions and really talking about our feelings when we're at home and we're decompressing from the day, I think is a really great thing to do. Next one. Cozy corners. I love cozy corners. My office is like a big, giant cozy corner of music equipment and comfortable seating. Cozy corners can look a lot of different ways. Having a safe space, like I talked about, to just be able to talk is important, but having a safe space to go to decompress is important. In a classroom, it could look like one of these pictures, but the exact same thing could be at home. Depending on the age of your child, looking at different age appropriate things. In my kindergarten room, I've got a cozy corner with a lot of stuffed animals to hug, a lot of weighted blankets, a lot of just like comforting sensory things. As I get into my older classrooms, my third, fourth, and fifth, maybe not as many stuffed animals, still some stuffed animals, but things like books or games. If you see this one on the right, there's a little timer. And just, all right, for a few minutes, I'm going to be here. I'm going to take some deep breaths. I'm going to relax. Just really having this space where you can go. In this third grade classroom I work with, it's called Take 5. And it's when you're feeling really frustrated, you hold up your Take 5 pass, you head over to your safe space. There's some things there that you've set up for yourself. And as I talk about coping skills in a later slide, some of those things like journaling, like coloring pages, but this idea of just getting away from the thing that's frustrating you, because as we know, when we're really escalated, it's really hard to make a rational decision. Thinking about myself in a traffic jam, I'm very frustrated. I'm probably not gonna, be like, wow, I should be really calm right now. I'm too escalated. And so I need to take that space when I'm in my car and listen to music or just relax. And the cozy corner is the same idea. Next slide, please. Okay, so this next one was just talking about getting outside, I believe. And I was thinking of this from an education standpoint, but also just really changing your environment and changing up the routine. I know here in the schools, these walls can be kind of boring. These fluorescent lights can be really obnoxious, and being able to get away from that. And this can be one of your coping skills at home that you're teaching too, of just going on a walk, getting some fresh air, doing some mindfulness. And really what mindfulness is living right in the moment, being aware of what's going on around you, not worrying about the future, not worrying about the past, but just living right here. And so if you live in a place where the weather is nice, I'm in Colorado, the weather is fantastic right now, and the leaves are changing colors. And so just being able to get out, whether I've had the most frustrating day in the world, but just getting out and looking at mountains, changing leaves, just changing your routine up can be so therapeutic and just feel so good. And so getting outside is a really important piece of this social emotional learning. So this was the last little slide I was talking about, which is coping skills. And this can look like a lot of different things. And I think you may have heard this phrase just thrown out. Yeah, just do your coping skills, do some coping skills, but really being purposeful about how we teach that and what does it mean. I'm working with this book right now called Discover the River. And it's literally just a coloring book, but on each page is a little social emotional lesson. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a psychologist or a social worker to teach this. It just says, this first page is about love. what does it mean to feel loved? How does it feel? And the idea of this coloring book, coloring is a coping skill. There's adult coloring books that adults use all the time and just help calm down. And it's a great thing for kids too. I'm focusing here. I'm not worried about what I'm frustrated with. I'm not worried about these other problems, and I'm working on my coloring. And we're able to have this open conversation because our mind is a little more distracted on our coloring, and we can be really truthful and honest about these subjects. So some sort of coloring, some sort of art is always a great coping skill. You might think you're not a great artist, but everyone is a great art is a great artist. Art is just really what we want to make it. And so coloring is a great skill to have when you're feeling frustrated. I have yoga in here. I am not good at yoga at all, but I will try it, and it is fun, and it makes me laugh when I do it. And so just doing some kind of activity to change up your routine. I have journaling in here as well. And, just being able to write your thoughts down sometimes. It's not always easy to get our thoughts out or maybe say them as tactfully as we'd like to. And so a journal is this safe space of, I'm going to write down what I'm feeling. I'm really mad at my friend right now. And I'm so mad at Jerry, and he's so mean. And then walking away from that journal, coming back to it later and being like, yeah, I shouldn't have been so mad at Jerry. All he did was not pass me the ball one time. And it gives us a chance to take some space and not do anything that we're going to regret later. Then I have songwriting in here. This is kind of like journaling, and I am a big musician. You're going to see something that I made in a second here, but just this idea of, getting our words out. A lot of people like music. You might not think you're a great musician, but just putting your writing to music. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be something you've composed. I just think it's super therapeutic. And yeah, so I think, okay, so before I get to this, so this is a video. During all of COVID, I made a YouTube channel. I'll post it in the chat here, but it's just youtube.com/Adam Parker. And I made these daily social emotional lessons and did music at the end. And for me, that was super therapeutic. And that was how I connected with all of my families. And it ended up making it worldwide and becoming a bigger thing. But the idea here isn't to be a great musician or to do music videos, but it's to take something that you're passionate about and help teach that to your students or your children as a way to cope. And so for me, I'm very passionate about music, and it just took a little tweaking. Instead of singing songs about the things I used to, I turned it into singing songs about feelings and how to cope. And so as you're watching this video, think about what's something you're really passionate about that you can work with your family with. And maybe you love reading, and so you're going to work on writing your own book together as a family. Or maybe you love sports, and so at the end of every day, you're going to play a new game or something like that. And just getting excited about the ways that we cope. And so this is a video. I think it's going to work.
Yep, here we go.
It kind of sums up everything I've talked about.
We've got to meet kids where they're at. A whole lot of feelings are back. Talk about them through small groups and games, sharing some things that we think are unique. Everyone's feeling something, so check in with your students. Buddy up with partners while listening to music. Take some time to draw or journal in a notebook, letting out your feelings. It's absolutely normal. We can have meeting every morning. Doesn't matter what you say. No, it's not boring. Learning about your classmates' feelings, how they are coping and how they are dealing. It's cool. Everyone's feeling something. buddy up with partners while listening to music. Take some time to draw or journal in a notebook, letting out your feelings. It's absolutely normal. Coloring and yoga. Take a walk with your class, pretend school buses drove you. Write all your feelings into a song, and we can all sing along. Everyone's feeling something, so check in with your students. Buddy up with partners while listening to music. Take some time to draw or journal in a notebook, letting out your feelings. It's absolutely normal.
Okay, I'll stop there for time's sake. Thank
Cool.
you, Adam, for sharing that. It was wonderful. So fun.
Thanks so much. So yeah, just get really passionate about how you teach this social emotional learning and whatever your passion is. Mine happens to be music and making these music videos, but whatever is passion for you, that's gonna be your coping skill. Thanks.
Love it. All right. From there, we have one more speaker. So let's get to our next slide. Now we have Stacey. Stacey is an author and an educator and has just done some really, really amazing things with virtual learning that have just never been more relevant. So I'm really excited she's here. Stacey, I will pass it off to you.
Thank you so much. And so excited to speak to y'all today. I've loved hearing the ideas that have been shared. I am the Director of Innovation and Educational Technology at my school. And I also have written a book called Tech with Heart. And my goal is to really speak about how we can build more equitable and empowering classrooms by leveraging technology to provide more platforms for all ideas to shine and to amplify the voice of every individual in the room. So I know that maybe you think about the past year of remote learning and you just want to get off the computer, get away from all the digital tools, because in some ways it can feel more automated and less personal. But to me, technology has done the opposite. It's really helped ease anxiety in my classroom and has had a major impact on the relationships and the trust I've been able to build with my students. So my goal is to share some of that today. So I'm going to talk about, can you go to the next slide, please? So I'm going to talk about several different tools today because I found solutions to so many of our classroom needs in the technology that I've onboarded. But a tool is only a tool until it's part of your solution. So let me start by telling you some of the things that technology has allowed me to do in my classroom. And it has really helped me get to know my students, to deepen the relationships. And that's my biggest goal to get across to you today, hear from each and every student, and really be a more efficient teacher in my classroom. Next. So I'll begin by unpacking some of the primary goals that I constantly look at when I'm evaluating what educational technology to bring into my classroom and to share with teachers at my school. So I will mention a few tools by name that you may not have heard from before, but again, my goal is to really share some of the more big picture ideas, and then I'll dive into a couple of little examples. So first off, does this tool provide each student in the classroom an equal voice? For example, in a traditional classroom discussion, students are called on to raise their hand to respond. And teachers often repeatedly hear from the same students. In contrast, a tool like Pear Deck or Edpuzzle can really provide each student an opportunity to respond individually before we engage the full class in a conversation. So with these tools, each student is required to actively participate and respond to each question, form an opinion, and submit an answer. And I've heard a lot of people talk about creating this safe space in a variety of different ways. And to me, the technology can do this for us too, because students can anonymously respond. So the responses are anonymous to the group. So students don't have to worry about their peers, how they might perceive their answer, or worry about answering incorrectly. And that's super, super important. Kerri alluded to that way early in our talk today about how important it is for students to make mistakes on their learning journey. But how can we create a safer culture for making mistakes? I think that the tools help us get there. As well, they allow teachers to efficiently and effectively target class and individual student needs. So the analytics provided can really show class trends, as well as indicators of individual students who might need one-on-one work, and they can allow us to differentiate how students can respond to questions. So, some students are wonderful with oral contribution, on the spot thinking. Other students really do best when they have time to process, collect their thoughts, and type an answer, and then we can bring that conversation to the board. Next. So before I move on, I do want to take a quick step back and share a little bit about myself. So I was very much of a perfectionist and an introverted student, and my own experiences as a student have really shaped the educator I've become. So for me, there was nothing worse than having to raise my hand and being called on. And because of this, I'm very sensitive to cold calling on students in my classroom. So it was my first year teaching AP Calculus, and I was reminded of this almost paralyzing fear that I often felt in the classroom when I had to respond to a question on the spot. And again, I'm an analyzer and I like to think things through. It's not that I didn't have something to say. It's just that hand raising and on the spot verbal contribution has never been the optimal format for me to share my thoughts. So I really believe that when we creatively leverage tech tools such as Pear Deck and Flipgrid are two of them that are my favorites to do this, we can shift away from a culture of consistently praising the loudest voices in the room and the first to raise their hand towards one where every person has a platform to make their ideas seen and heard. And this is what really excites me. Technology has helped me provide a safe space for all students to contribute and to highlight what everyone in the room is thinking. And so when we give our learners the right platform to express those ideas and really integrate the tools that allow them to respond in a way that's most comfortable to them, we allow each student's most powerful voice to shine. And we show them that there are a variety of ways for them to contribute their thoughts and to make an impact. So let's take a quick look at remote learning. When we shifted instruction online, we saw some of our quiet students really thrive in ways that they never had before. And not just our quiet students. It didn't work for all students, but for some, the shifting definition of what participation looked and felt like was really powerful. And I think it's important that we think very carefully about that. So I'm going to take you back to some of my personal reflections on my own. So this is a quote from my book, Tech with Heart, where I take you back to my own middle school and high school mindset. So my mindset as a student was that everything needed to be perfect. Anything less was unacceptable. Taking the risk to raise my hand in class when I wanted to contribute my thoughts was always a challenge for me. But none of my teachers ever seemed to recognize this, or if they did, they never acknowledged it. The thing is, I really wanted to contribute to class discussion. I just didn't always know how to. And on top of my perfectionism, I was slow. Because I did so well in school, nobody was ever concerned. However, from the time I was in elementary school, it was difficult to complete assessments on time, and it always took me unreasonably long to finish homework in the evening. And I guess that's just one thing that I really would like to talk more about. And even, as adults, as parents, that we can talk more about, that being the quiet one in the classroom or in a meeting doesn't mean that the person doesn't have something to say or isn't participating. We all process it differently. We all contribute uniquely. And just because I'm never going to be the first one to shoot up my hand doesn't mean that I don't have something to say. And I think it's critical that we take this into consideration when we think about how we run our classrooms and how leaders run meetings, so that we can allow each and every person in the room to contribute. Next. So I'm going to talk really quickly. I know we're running really low on time, but I'm going to talk really quickly about the hand raising topic. So in my search for a way for all students to respond without having to be called on, I found Pear Deck. And one of my favorite things about Pear Deck is that I can see students responding in real time. In that teacher dashboard that I have, I can gather information on how students are working through problems immediately. And Pear Deck levels the playing field in the sense that it gives those students who need time to craft a reply from behind the screen a chance. So Pear Deck has been an essential tool in providing all students a safe space to share without having to call an individual student out. And so again, I think it really helps level the playing field so that some students can reply from behind the screen. And this isn't to say that tech integration is about students hiding behind their laptop, typing or drawing their thoughts, because for students who are more vocal, again, their voice may come out when we take that discussion to the board, when I start calling on students, when they have a chance to share. But with Pear Deck, I can shine the spotlight on ideas and voices that may have gone unheard before. And I think that's really important. So I see that we're totally out of time. So I'm going to go ahead, and if you could just scroll through, I was going to talk a little bit more about Pear Deck, and then Flipgrid is another favorite tool of mine. And then Edpuzzle are really great for getting some analytics ahead of time. But just to close, it's really my hope that more and more teachers will look to tech with that whole child wellness in mind. And I think that's where we discover really powerful ways to intentionally integrate technology into the design of our lessons. And I hope that my talk today has given you some ideas on how to do just that.
Thank you, Stacey. Sorry, we were running low on time. We had so many crazy different ideas going on here today. There's a lot going on. So thank you all for hanging with us. I don't see any questions happening in the chat or anything like that. But be sure to check out the resource page for this event. You can find links to everything we talked about over the past 4 installments of this SEL series. So thank you all. Happy Halloween. Oh, we do have one item in the chat. Oh, Stephanie said thank you. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in. I know we're over, but give it a second here. How do we access the resource page? So when you registered, when you registered the form, at the bottom of the form, there's a link. And we'll also, I'll tell you what, we will be sending out, and recordings, they're there as well. So we'll be sending out a survey. And when you guys get that survey, we will put in a link to the resource page, see if we can do that as well. Krista, did you want to see if we can drop, if there's any links in here? No, we'll get them.
Yeah, I'll drop that in right now.
Okay, yeah, Krista's gonna drop it in the chat. And then there you go. That's it. I'll give it a second to not stop the webinar so you guys can grab that link. Any other questions? There you go. Cool, and there's the resources. Yep, that's it. All right, well, thank you guys. Thank you so much to all of our speakers and to all of our attendees. Stop my share, and like I said, have a great Halloween. Thanks all. Bye.